Hey everybody, CL King here, live in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and it's about 10:30 at night. So I know I had posted on my page that we were going to do this at 9 and actually have it ready for you at 9. But we're getting ready for a big Jeep Expo that our church is hosting, and also our fall festival. And so just got in from finishing up with that, and now it's time to deal with this issue that has been going throughout the news over the last 3 or 4 days, and that is the altercation between the 16-year-old student and the resource officer in South Carolina. Since that thing happened, I don't typically do this in terms of getting involved in the hot button topics that are out there in the news. I don't typically do that because I have a very razor sharp focus on what my mission is, what my assignment is, and what my purpose is. And so I'm not really much on chasing rabbit trails, with the latest news events. I haven't done it. I haven't done that since we formed this company in 2010, and I'm not making it a habit to start now. But I do think that this occurrence sheds some light on a broader, more serious issue. The folks in D.C. are taking an approach that we need to have better relations between the police officer and the citizenry, and I agree. But in this particular case, my focus being a youth advocate, I would like to speak to the youth. I would like to speak to those that serve the youth. And I want to be very plain and clear. As a speaker, I have never been one to sugarcoat it when I go to schools. I think that's why we've been so successful, in that I just try to tell young people the truth and spark their imagination to do better than what they're doing, and not utilize excuses to justify their particular course in life. Here's what I think. After scouring the internet over the last few days and looking at the dialogue, I see that our country is actually very split on this topic, on this issue with this young lady. I go to one particular news website, and it's 99.9% of the folks are saying our young people don't have respect for authority. They don't know. This is a different generation. You can't tell them nothing. And then I see the other side of the spectrum. You can call it left or right, however you want to categorize it. And those folks are saying, here we go again, another police brutality. You can't be black in America because, you go to school and they're going to slam you to the ground and they're going to put chains back on you. I'm telling you that on both sides of those issues, there is a needed dialogue. To the young people, they have said, this girl, if you just follow the rules. And then to the other side, they have said, why do you got to always oppress and depress and hurt our people? Well, we got to deal with both of those questions, because it hurts my heart to see the video that you all saw, but it also hurts my heart to see the response be so divided, when the truth of the matter is both parties have culpability in this discussion. So let's deal with the youth as it relates to this young lady. Okay, we have seen a change and a shift in some areas of respect for authority. Okay, I'm just going to be straight up with you. I used to teach severe behavior students back in the mid to late 90s, and it was that way then with those students. They had issues, they were assaultive, and they had all kind of backgrounds like me, foster home, kids of the system, and they did not respect authority. And then now we see in this generation where technology has made our young people just as knowledgeable in street knowledge and academics as the adults. We're saying the young people don't view adults as authority figures. Now, in this particular case, this young lady, according to what we see, was asked to comply with the school rules, which were reasonable, and the young lady was not complying. I can say this, okay, if you're a young person and you're in a situation where there are known rules and objectives, it is your responsibility to comply with them. Okay, I'm not talking about, if somebody stops you on the street and you got to get slammed to the ground for just being in the area. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being in an institutional setting where there are known responsibilities and rules. It is your responsibility to comply with them. Okay, because non-compliance brings undue attention to you. I was talking to a friend of mine today, and he says, you throw that pebble into that massive pool, and your one little action can ripple out miles away. And you don't get to control the effects of your action. And so I'm speaking to the generation before me, the generation that I speak to. This is C.L. King talking to you, saying, you know what? We do need to have a respect for authority. I'm not saying that if somebody that is in authority tries to do something that violates your moral compass or your ethical compass, that you can't stand up for yourself. I'm not saying that, because there are people in authority that shouldn't be in authority. But let's make the playing field level, and let's keep everything on par. Okay, in a normal setting, if you're in class and you are being disruptive, it is your responsibility to comply with the normal rules that govern that body. Because when you do that, that keeps us from being barbaric. That eliminates barbarism in our life and in our community, in our neighborhoods. When we comply, the speed limit in my neighborhood, in a neighborhood setting, the speed limit is 25 to 35 miles an hour. Okay, I got to get home because I got all these things to do. I got a speech to write. I got whatever I got to do. I need to fly through here at 85 miles an hour. You know what? It is my responsibility to comply with the rules that are set forth that govern this society here. And, whether you want to debate on, well, they talk to me a certain way, they look down at me a certain way. Okay, all of the things that we typically hear in the narrative of how adults interact with young people today, it is still your responsibility. You're talking to someone that went through hell as a young person. I'm talking about, the young lady that's in this situation is evidently an orphan in foster care and so on. And I'm just like, well, you know what? That never was the narrative that my foster mom said to use when I was in an institution governed by rules, like school. She didn't say go to school and act a fool or don't comply because you don't live with your mom and dad. You've been bounced around from homes and group homes, and you spent time on the streets. That did not give me a pass to say I'm just going to come here and not comply. And so, young people, it is our responsibility to respect authority. When authority is operating in the normal confines and the construct of a functioning society, it's our responsibility. So, where people are saying, young people have a degenerated respect for authority, I tend to see that more and more and more. I'm not painting a broad brush and saying every young person I'm talking to out there, none of y'all respect nobody. But I am saying we're seeing it more and more. And I know you young people don't like being pigeonholed in one particular demographic or category or type. But I'm just saying we see it more and more. And I'm here to tell you that it has to stop, because the results, as you see, can literally be catastrophic. You know, this young lady walks away and this officer gets relieved of duty, but she slammed her head on the floor and suffered a brain aneurysm, and now we're dealing with a death, an unneeded death, because of something that we saw as non-compliance. So young people, a friend of mine told me this. He said, you know what, if a cop asks you to stop for a reasonable request, if his request is reasonable and he's asking you to stop, he's an officer of the law, you have a responsibility to stop. Because what we've seen with those that choose to escalate, it always turns bad. Always. 99.9.5% of the time, when you're not in the wrong and you present yourself as a normal, educated citizen, the police officer is going to make his inquiry, move on. If you're guilty of having bad tags for 6 months, then you're going to get a ticket. If you've been walking through the neighborhood, peeping at people's houses, then you're probably going downtown. But if you're going from school to home and you let them know, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm headed, this is where I'm coming from, and your story is legit, you're probably going to go home. But when you escalate, when you are the escalator, when you refuse to comply with reasonable requests within authority, just look at the news and you see. Now, to those that serve the students. Okay, I've dealt with the young people. They probably will never talk to me again. But I do think it's right that young people do respect authority. But to those that serve our students, our SROs, our teachers, our administrators, there are things that we've got to do better. I do teacher and staff development workshops, and I talk about the 5 areas in helping our young people succeed. And one of them is analyzing the student's life outside of that classroom. Oftentimes we're ready to throw down the gavel of punishment without truly knowing the whole scope. Let's just say we had done this in this situation. The young lady doesn't want to comply, so the teacher asks her to comply and she doesn't, so then it escalates. Step up. So now we got the principal, which is the highest authority in the school. Principal asks the young lady to comply. For some reason she doesn't, so then we get the SRO, which is a law enforcement officer. Okay, his job there is to protect and serve. And she doesn't comply. So now what does a law enforcement officer do to get a 16-year-old child out of the class? Well, here's what you can't do. You can't take it to the escalation point of what we saw. You've got to try as adults and those that serve our young people, we have got to try to mitigate these issues and resolve them at the lowest level. Classroom management, a suggestion would be to remove the other students from the class. You've removed this young lady's audience, for which sometimes students perform for, and you try to de-escalate the issue. You know, I don't know if just because a student is being disruptive or talkative in class that we go all the way to the SRO. You know, we call SROs in when we've got a student that's brandishing a weapon and we've got a young lady that's just being disruptive. We've got to be a little bit more creative and a little bit more savvy in our approaches, because you know, there's 1, 2, 3 videos, whatever. The student hit the cop. Okay, I understand that. But when we bring law enforcement in, law enforcement operates different than administrators and teachers. They're trained different than administrators and teachers. And I really do believe that we have got to understand our young people. We've got to understand our students. You know, was she new in your school? Did you get enough information about her life? This is what I talked about in several of my teacher trainings. You know, why is a kid acting out? You got to define their behavior. You got to measure who it's affecting. You got to analyze their home life. You got to give them something to help them improve themselves, and then return control back to them, because you can't hold their hand forever. And we as adults are the adults. You know, there was a situation in the news, and you guys have seen it, where the cop comes out because kids are at a pool party doing whatever, perhaps breaking the law, allegedly. I don't know all the story, but I do know what I saw in the video. The officer has to come out screaming, using profanity, pulling his weapon, and the situation is escalated. It is our job as adults to de-escalate. Let me talk to you as a parent. Sometimes I come home and I found out that my kids have been kids and they have done stuff that they shouldn't have done. And you know what? My first instinct as a Marine, even though I'm wearing my son's Army shirt, proud Army dad, my first instinct as a Marine is to escalate and destroy the situation and gain control. Then I realized if I escalate, I am out of control in an elevated escalation mode in my mind and in my posture and in my demonstrative actions. So I've got to make sure that I'm in control. And we as the adults have to we yield control back to the student when we totally lose control. And I want you to know that us as people that are servants to this next generation, we've got to do a better job too. In my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, young boys walking around town. I am for the facts, and I am for improving things on both sides. You haven't heard me say one thing about race at all, have you? I'm talking about, as a society, we that serve young people have got to do better. Two cops get a word that a kid's walking around with a gun. The 911 call was unclear of what type of gun it was. The cop comes, you see the video, out with the weapon, kid dead in Cleveland, Ohio. Yes, should the kid not have been walking around town with a gun that looks like a actual gun, and it was an airsoft gun? He should not have been doing that. Should somebody have intervened at a lower level? Yes. Should it not have gotten to that point? Yes. Should the cops have maybe looked at and assessed and analyzed the situation better? You say, well, you're not there in the heat of the battle. You don't know. You don't know the rules of engagement. You're not there. You can't say what you would do in that situation. But I can say sometimes when we step back and view the whole picture, maybe there's a better way. I know what the expedient way is. Yeah, the cop needs to get you out of class because you're being disruptive. But is there a better way so that you win as the law enforcement officer, the teachers win, and now students don't view the officers as these malicious bullies that they've been painted out to be across the news media? Because I'm telling you, if somebody's breaking into my house, I am not calling the ice cream man. I'm calling the police. So I respect and appreciate our law enforcement officers. But we collectively, as a team that serves this next generation, has got to do better. To think before we react. So for those of you on the right or on the left or somewhere in the middle like me, I want you to realize that society is not stopping for any of us. And if we don't find ways to improve our relationships, we will see this more and more. We're seeing it so much now, it's becoming normal. You know, this shooting, that shooting, this shooting, that shooting. And then I go and review what everybody thinks in America, and I see one side of the fence says, man, they're killing all of our people. I see another side of the fence says, well, they shouldn't have been doing what they were doing. One side's heartless, one side's, you see what I'm saying? You got one side that's saying you shouldn't have been doing what you was doing, and you got another side that's saying they're oppressing our people. And I'm just like, well, you know what? There's probably some culpability on both sides. And all of you out there watching probably agree with me. So I don't know how long I've been talking, but I want you to know, young people, it's time to go to the next level. Okay? It's time to quit messing around in class and disrupting class, and just go to school and get your education. Do what you got to do to excel. Those of you that are out there hurting, I understand your hurt is real. C.L. King has been hurt grievously in my years on this earth. But it took one person that said, you know what, Chris, I believe in you. You don't have to go down that way. And one person introduced me to a life that helped me get to where I am today. She understood my background. She understood. She did not make any excuses, and she did not make life easy for me. My foster mom was tough, but I'm so thankful she was. Those of you out there hurting, we cannot let our pain be the platform by which we use to not do well in life. Can't use that. Can't use it. It's called an excuse. And I'm asking you, what's your excuse for succeeding? Don't give me your excuse for failure. Moms, dads, teachers, principals, administrators, school resource officers, I know the job is difficult. I work with students sometimes. One time, one student busted out a glass on one of our staff members' face, busted out a window. Staff was standing on the other side looking in the window, and the student busted it out in his face. I know sometimes our jobs can be difficult. Okay, am I going to be videoed? Am I going to get arrested because I corrected a child? Am I going to be held in contempt of, you know what I mean? I get it. But we do have to be the ones, we're the professionals, we do have to be the ones to try to find a way to de-escalate all these types of issues that manifest, because they do, and they will continue. We have to be creative enough, we have to be savvy enough, we have to be skilled enough to really get into the hearts of the students and people that we serve to better serve them. So this has been a video from the heart. I hope that we don't have to see more of this stuff. I hope that we can find a way to make things better. But I thank you all for watching. Sorry it's been so long, but I felt like I needed to unearth this burden and tell you my heart. So from the headquarters of C.L. King, with my good cat Charlie here, I want you guys to know that I love you, I appreciate you, and I thank you. You guys want to see Charlie? He came, he wanted to be in the video too. There he is. So this is very informal, and this is not designed to try to hype you up. It's designed to try to get us all to think. So let's do that, because our generation can be the greatest generation. You all that are young people, y'all can be the greatest generation. We just have to learn how to work within the confines of what life has given us. So God bless you all. We'll be heading out tomorrow for the Fall Festival here in Jacksonville. So I hope everybody has a great October 31st, and we'll see you next week.